Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Corrine Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Corrine.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast. And today, my guest is Dr. Michelle Odette Green. And I'm going to have Dr. Michelle tell you all about herself.
Oh, wow. Well, hello, and thank you so much for having me as your guest today. I'm so excited to be here and just a little bit about who I am. As you heard, I have a doctorate degree. I have an earned doctorate degree in educational leadership. And just putting that aside, Corrine, please call me Michelle. So I would love for you to call me Michelle. We're just having this great conversation. And also, I am a brain health trainer, a happiness coach, a neuroencoding specialist. And I really just love helping people be the best that they can be, if you will. I years ago found myself in a place where I had all the trappings in the world, the beautiful house, the car, the clothes, my 2 kids, husband, and I was just so unfulfilled and so unhappy. And I did not understand why. I couldn't understand why. I didn't know what was going on with me. Again, career going well, and my life seemed like the ideal life if you were looking from the outside. But in the inside, I was miserable. And I went on a quest to learn how to be happy from the inside out. And my personal development started in I'm saying the early 90s. It was really earlier than that, but I wasn't calling it personal development. And so my love for helping people was because I know what I went through. And personal development really helped change my life. And I learned what it takes for you to be happy from the inside out. And I learned how to help people default to their better behaviors through all of the training programs I've gone through, the schooling I've gone through, the jobs that I've had. And I'm on a mission to help educate and inspire individuals to lead a happy, healthy, and productive life. And so that is a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Oh, I love it. And you and I share that same fulfillment quest. I went on a very similar quest, and having been um, battled with deep depression, suicidal ideation, that waxed and waned for so many years, until I found the tools to help me along. What I would love for you to tell the audience is just a snippet of your story, as to how you started to work towards that fulfillment. What really brought you to your knees, if you will, to finally say, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be all in.
Thank you for that question. I do want to make a couple of comments before I go into, and I'm going to go into one of the most devastating times of my life, because I've had many, but it was one that really changed me deeply. And it took me to my knees, and I was in a depression for months on end. And that is the death of my son. So prior to, and I'm going to stop right there with the death of my son, but prior to that, I was just really unhappy. I was unhappy for no apparent reason. And I didn't understand about neurochemicals in the body. I wasn't really understanding about how your hormones work, self-talk, how all that really affected your mood. And so when I got into personal development, I started learning more about self-talk and
Yeah.
about not the neurochemicals, if you will, because really back then neuroscience wasn't a thing,
Right.
but just really learning to exercise, eat healthier, get sleep, and talk to myself in a different way, and just being forgiving people, if you will, including myself.
Yes.
And so I started there learning all of those things. And then in 2006, my son's life was snatched from him. And at that time, it was just, yes, thank you for that.
Mm.
It was
Yeah.
such a a hard time for my life. And I'm working right now, it's
Mm.
been since 2006, and I feel myself getting emotional over it, not knowing that I would, because I have learned to cope with it. And I typically
Yeah.
don't get real emotional about it, but for some reason, I'm getting very
Mm.
triggered right now. So let me just calm myself down. I've learned
Yeah.
calming techniques to soothe my
Mhm.
emotions and to regulate my emotions, if you will.
Mhm.
And so just going back to that particular day when I got the phone call that my son had actually been murdered. So I will call it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it just seemed like my life was turned upside down in that very instance. And it's like the ground beneath me just really just crumbled. And I found myself screaming, asking, what do I do now? What do I do now? I
Mm.
was just such at a loss. I couldn't believe that my son's life would be snatched from him in such a brutal way. And what's more about that is that the thing that has really helped me get through it more than anything is, number one, that morning when I woke up. It was such a beautiful day. The sun was shining so
Mm.
bright, and I literally felt love radiating throughout my home. That
Mm.
day, I picked up a picture album and I started looking at my son and I. And all of this time, my son had already been gone, if you will. That's the best way I know how to say that. I
Yeah.
had no knowledge of it. All I know is that I had so much love radiating throughout my home, and me looking at the pictures of him and
Mm.
just me feeling how much I loved him and how deeply I loved him.
Mm.
And I had planned to call him that day because I had talked to him a couple of days prior, and I wanted to make sure that he was okay because I had gotten sick and he was living in another state at the time. And I was just making sure that he was taking care of himself, the mama bear
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had talked to him on that Friday. And then that Saturday, I didn't talk to him, but we talked on a regular basis. But I decided, because I had been talking to him so much throughout the week and bugging him, that on that Saturday, I would give it a rest. I would just call him on that Sunday. And I never made the actual phone call. I will say that the way I felt that morning, I say that we were having a spiritual connection, that he was sending his
Mm.
love to me that
Ooh.
morning through the sun, through just the feeling that I had
Mhm.
resonating throughout my home, the fact that I was looking at pictures of us. And I can tell you, I don't
Mhm.
recall ever having that feeling, looking at those
Yeah.
pictures on, one more. I don't ever recall that all of that type of stuff lined up for me. And so that's why it is etched in my memory, because of, number one, that I did all of those things and I felt those things. And then number two, that was the day that he passed away. And so from there, I tell you, he my son, he was such a kind, loving, gentle person. And for what happened to him, to me, shouldn't have happened to him, but God knows best. And so I decided that I wouldn't question it. I just have to live with the fact that my life is
Mm.
forever changed. My firstborn child is gone. He was only 22 years of age. Matter of
Mm.
fact, he was minding his own business. And so all of those things, I just went into a deep depression for about 4 months. And the good news is what took me out of the depression, sorry about that. What took me out of the depression was I got help. I
Mhm.
sought help because within 30 days, I'd lost 30 pounds. I got so small, and my mind, I couldn't stop thinking about him and
Yeah.
what could I have done different as a parent. And I
Oh.
didn't have
Mm.
so much regret or guilt. I just still had those questions. What if he would have still been here? What could I have done different?
Sure.
And I just was ruminating on those things. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, and I knew that I needed to get help. And so I got help. I sought therapy. I joined
Good.
grief groups. And from those groups, it started helping me to reinforce some of the tools that I knew to utilize to help me move through the stages of grief. And so I didn't want to get stuck. And I knew that my son would want me to continue to live because I have other
Mm.
kids and grandkids, and he has a daughter. And so I knew he would want me to keep living. And the last thing I'll say before I turn it back over to you, because
Yeah.
I know I've said a lot, is that I was actually in the middle of earning my doctorate degree as well. And I put a halt on that. I had to take a pause. So I took
Okay.
a break for about 6 months until I could really get
Mhm.
myself together and get back in the game. And so I made it a point that not only was I going to earn the degree for myself, but also I would celebrate his life as well and
Oh.
use it as a way to keep me motivated. And then the last thing I will say, my son was so funny. And my son, I always
Mhm.
felt like he was going to be an inspirational speaker of some sort. And so I decided that, well, since he can't be here to speak, then I'll be his mouthpiece and I'll speak on his behalf.
Mm.
And so
I
my
love it.
goal also is to continue to help people again be the best that they can be so that they can do right things. They can think right thoughts because we know as
Yeah.
we think, that's how we feel. And what we feel, that's how we do. And what we do, that's what we have in
Yeah.
life. And so, with that in mind, I'm going to turn it back over to you because I
Yeah.
can say so much more.
Mm. Well, you had it's so rich what you had in there. So, one of the things I like to cover is this podcast is about opinions and about life experiences, and so we always recommend that people seek professional help if they feel they need it. And so I love the fact that you brought in that was your first step. You
Mhm.
went that route, first thing. And that, first of all, I just want, of course I have to cover my heart when you're telling me about your son and what happened. And to say that, I think it's great that you've been able to, learn some techniques to help you um, settle the emotion back in. However, I also want to tell you that it's perfectly allowed to have it flow on here, because we are human beings, and
Yes.
those sort of things still come up. And it's so interesting because I had a very similar experience when my brother died, in that I was driving with my son in the car, and it was an October fall day here in Wisconsin, and it was beautiful. The sun was shining, it was glistening off the corn stalks. And he and I were laughing, and we were driving to go and meet my husband for lunch. And
Mm,
my phone kept ringing, and then that was my sister trying to get a hold of me to let me know that our brother had died in his
mhm.
sleep. And but it was like that that sunshine just shining in and warming up our bodies, and I think just letting us know, like you said, and I definitely, when you were talking and speaking of your son, I got those confirmation goosebumps that I get to let me know that God is definitely saying, yes, yes, that was your son communicating with you. And it's such a beautiful knowing that you have and that connection that you have with your son and continue and will always have because his energy will always be with you. So anyway, just so beautiful. And then you went in and you touched on how you started to put one foot in front of the other and the
Yes.
things that you've done to create, more joy. So, I heard that this particular thing affected you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. This was the whole ball of wax.
Yes.
And here you are today taking, I mean, from one mama to another, where it is the worst thing that could possibly ever happen
Yes.
in a mama's world. Um, and you're taking it and you're using it to serve the greater good.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I just want to celebrate that. I want to celebrate you, Michelle. I want to celebrate the fact um, that you are out there doing amazing things, and I know that you are. And it it I just want the audience to know that what that takes, right? So you said you
Yes.
went to therapy and that, you decided you were going to commit to finishing your doctorate degree in speaking on stages. And like, talk to us about what that looks like now in 2024.
Yes, so good, so good. So I do want to, before I get to 2024, I want to
Yeah,
add some other things there.
sure, sure.
And so what happened with me as well in the process of seeking therapy, I also use music. And for me, it was gospel
Oh,
music that helped ease the pain. And Yolanda Adams is one of my favorite artists. And
okay.
I back then I had in my car the cassette tapes. so so I'm really dating myself, even though you guys know it's 2006 already. But I had a cassette tape, and every morning I would listen to, when I was in my car, I should say, I would listen to Yolanda Adams and The Battle Is Not Yours. That was one of my favorite songs that I listened to
Mm.
every single day. And just hearing the music helped me get it out because I would cry. I would cry through the song,
Hmm.
and it would also bring me relief. And the great thing about that is that one day I met her and I got a chance to tell her how her music helped me
Ooh,
get through one of the roughest periods of my life. And so I was so grateful that I was able to tell her that. And then just
that's
moving
beautiful.
forward, yes, isn't it?
That's so
So
beautiful.
here's another thing about what I dealt with. So I was serving at the time as the center director for an urban job corps center. And if you are familiar with Job Corps, it is a residential career treatment program. I'm saying treatment program, but it's a program where we help young adults ages 16 up through 24 earn their high school diploma if they have not received their high school diploma. We
Mhm.
also have career track programs where we help them learn a trade so that they can start a career, and we sent them to college. And so at that time, I was working with that age group. And when I was off work dealing with this deep depression, I didn't know if I could go back to work. I didn't know if I could go
Mm,
back to work and put myself in an environment where I was helping that age group when I had just lost my son, who was only 22 at the time.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so that was very, very difficult. As a matter of fact, I actually typed up my resignation, and my goal was to submit it once I came off of medical leave, because I had to take that leave because I just really couldn't function.
Yeah.
And so my mother, bless her, she said, Michelle, why don't you just, before you submit your resignation, just go back to work and see what happens. And so I took her advice, which was great advice. And actually, that was one of the better things for me, to get back around young people that I could help and that I could encourage. And so I was so grateful that I actually went back to work, because it also kept me busy. It kept me from sitting in the house and doing unresourceful things. Unresourceful to
Sure.
me just means watching TV, mindless TV, eating. As a matter of fact, there was a point where I just couldn't eat, but then there was a point where I start back eating, and then, just doing
Right.
unresourceful things. So getting back to work helped me tremendously. And so I always had a desire to move to another state as well. And the state that my son was in, I had considered doing that. And then after I thought about it, I was like, no, I don't want to move there, because that's, where his life was taken. And then I live in the state of Arizona right now. So the point of me even bringing that up is that I got to a point where 3 years later, after working, I was ready to shift my life. I had earned my doctorate degree. I started teaching at the University of Phoenix, and I was doing some consulting work. And so I decided to go ahead and leave that job, if you will, and move to another state. And so in moving to the other state, then I started my own my own business. And the thing that I loved about this one business that I started, it was fitness. So I was doing
Okay.
fitness and
Yeah, I love
nutrition.
it.
And so in doing the fitness and nutrition, I met Joseph McClendon III. As
Oh,
a
yay,
result
our
doing
mentor.
that. So I'm getting us fast forwarding to 2024. And
Yeah.
so through the company that I was working with, I went to a conference, and Joseph McClendon III was at that conference. And so I fell in love with him back then, and really didn't know much about him, but I just knew that I like what he had to say. And then let me back up also to working with Job Corps. So it is unfortunate, but it is a reality that some of our young people, they have mental issues, if you will. And so
Yeah.
we had a psychiatrist and a psychologist there at the center to help with with the students, if you will. And so I didn't like the fact that the psychiatrist wanted to medicate the students. And
Okay.
one day I was looking at a PBS special, and I saw Dr. Daniel Amen. And
Amen.
I'm like, I love what he was talking about. And so I purchased his first book. Well, not his first book, but I purchased a book he had out, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life,
Your
something
life.
like that. I don't have it in front of me, don't have it committed, but it's
Yeah.
something to that effect. And so I went on a quest to learn everything that I could about how to work with the brain without having to use medication. And I indoctrinated my staff into that, purchased them books, so on and so forth. Now I want to go fast
Yeah.
forwarding. So now I have Dr. Daniel Amen in my ear. I'm loving everything he's talking about. Then I moved to Arizona. I joined this company. I have this other business. And then I meet Dr. Joseph
Joseph.
McClendon
Good.
III. And then fast forward to 2021, the brain revolution.
Oh,
One
yeah.
day I get an email and I see Dr. Daniel Amen and Dr. Joseph McClendon. They partnered together to bring the brain revolution to the world. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I said, I love these two men. I love what they are doing on the planet, if you will. And so immediately I joined the brain revolution. And as a result of that, that's where I got the training to be a certified brain health trainer and to be a neuroencoding specialist. And so now I help people change their brain for the good, because we know if your brain works right, your life works so much better.
Oh, sure.
And yes, and then with neuroencoding, I have tools and techniques where I teach people how to default to their better behavior. And then I also want to add that I am a happiness for No Reason certified trainer, where I teach people how to be happy for no good reason. It's not predicated on external circumstances. It's just predicated on just you knowing how to activate your neurochemicals within your body and your brain so that you can default to your better behaviors or a happier mood. And so I teach tools and techniques there as
Sure.
well. And so with that with that in mind,
Yeah.
2024, I'm just doing more of what I love, and that's helping people to have a healthier brain, to be happier in life. And, if they want more, I coach them on other areas. But basically, brain health and happiness are my jam.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's why you and I connect so much. There's also so many um synchronicities between you and I as far as just dates and different things, different ways our path crossed and similarities. But
Yes,
of course, Dr. Daniel Amen and Dr. Joseph McClendon are two of the big areas, and how fortunate we are um, to have them as mentors and be able to do the things
yes.
that we do to help people. And it's a blessing, right? And we can take the things that happened in our life that did bring us to our knees and take those things. My dad died in 2006, so my brother was
Mm.
2011, and so for me, um they were my driver, right? I wanted to learn more about them, and so much like you, really digging in and finding out. I don't like to slap a band-aid on. I'm a root digger. I like to just dig it out. I
Right.
want to know how to serve in the best way possible. And I think often what happens is when people have things that happen in their life, they can get really stuck in the
Mhm.
mud. And, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with everyone, just a snippet even of your story of what you went through, with losing your son and how you've risen to where you are now. Um, and sharing that now you have joy in your life again. You do feel
Yes.
fulfilled. And it maybe we don't know, right? We don't know if the fulfillment would have come if you wouldn't have hit your knees, so like we
Yes.
can always look back in that rear view mirror and just see all the good that came from your beautiful son's life, and how he has been that wind beneath your wings and keeping you moving forward. And I would love for you to share with the audience right now how they can connect with you, find you, so they can get all your happiness secrets and and your brain health tips and um, yeah,
Yes. So I do want to also say one more thing, and then I'll
okay.
tell you all of that. So life has been continuing to life. It's life
That's
right
what
now
it
as we
does.
speak, right? My
Yeah.
air
Oh yeah.
conditioner went out in my house. Now I have two units. Both units decide that they they were retiring at the same time. So I'm sitting in a house that's over 90 degrees with a fan on, which I thank God that I have a fan, right? So I'm grateful for that. So I try to
Mhm.
look for the good in everything,
Sure.
regardless to what's going on. Look for the lesson and the gift. And that's one technique in terms of being happy from the inside out, looking for the lesson in the
Yeah.
and the gift, and savoring the good when you see it and find it, and
Mm.
looking for the good. And so I have a new program out that actually starts September the 8th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is a Sunday. And it is a group coaching program, the Happy Life program. And you know how when people find themselves where they have amassed a lot of abundance, material abundance, and they have all the things that they so desire, but they still feel unfulfilled and
Mhm.
unhappy. Well, my program is designed to change all of that, to help them to rediscover joy, rediscover
Yeah.
how to have, more happiness in their life, if you will, and learn how to think more positively and optimistic and cultivate, relationships, strong relationships. I love community. Community is everything to me. And so the program actually, and I realized as I'm speaking to you that this show may be aired a little later. I will have the program ongoing. So the program is
Okay.
going to be an ongoing program. And so people can look out for the program on my website,
Perfect.
www.drmichelleodette.com or successinactioninstitute.com. That is another business that I did not talk about that I have.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, as a matter of fact, I have so many businesses that I didn't tell you about. Right now, my husband and I, we're building a tiny home resort in the state of Arkansas. And so people will be able to come there for retreats, family reunions, weddings, so on and so
I
forth.
love it.
And so,
I love it.
yes, it is so neat, so cool. And so I do have a presence on social media, Instagram. I'm Dr. Michelle Odette at Instagram, Facebook. I'm Michelle Odette Green. And I have a limited presence on LinkedIn, which I'm working on building that presence. And I'm Dr. Michelle Odette Green on LinkedIn. So those are a few of the ways that individuals can get in touch with me.
Perfect. And we'll put those all in the show notes. So there'll be links for you to have. And we just really appreciate you being here. And what's one last thing, one last little tip that you have for the audience?
I really have to sum this up. And one last tip. Ooh, okay. I'm going to put a couple in one. So this is how I think is that in order for your life to get better, you have to take 100% responsibility for your life. And when I say responsibility, it's within your ability to respond. We know that some people are going through a lot of things, and so they may have chemical imbalances where their response is not the ideal response. The point being is that if you take 100% responsibility for your life, then you can start doing the work to move your life in the direction that you would want it to go. And having a community to help you, a loving community to help you, makes all the difference in the world. And so I just want people to know that if you have a desire to change your life for the better, you can do it. You just have to put in deliberate, conscious effort and know that it takes time. You just make the decision that you want to do something different, and you talk to yourself in a loving way. Get around people who will support you and help you on that track. And I will tell you, if you stay in the game and you keep moving your life forward, no matter how small each day, and celebrate your progress, your forward moving progress, you will change in whatever area you desire to change. And so I know that was a little long. I needed to package it that way because the bottom line is, if it is up to us to change our lives, we have to do the work. And so thank you again for having me as a guest on your show.
Thank you for being here. And I agree with you 100%, right? We get to take responsibility for our own lives. And just, no matter what has come prior to this point, when we take that responsibility and we make the choice, right? I decide, and I get to. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Where we get to break those chains off of us. And I've loved having you here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And like I said, all of her information will be in the show notes. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorrineZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.